Have you ever wondered what happens when intense rivalries and emotions boil over on the pitch? Or what happens when players lose control and engage in dangerous behavior? Or how one mystery player shoved another in the eye, almost permanently blinding him? These are the crazy list of players who have nearly caused fatal injuries from feuds on the pitch. Let's start with Sekou Mara. A struggle for the ball, a high boot to the head, a concussion, and disheartened teammates are the words to describe the Chelsea vs Southampton match during the Premier League. So, who was the unlucky player that received Sekou Mara's high boot to the head? Azpilicueta, of course. The injury was so nasty that they had to stop the game for about 10 minutes while he was stretchered away and given an oxygen mask. When he had to be given oxygen, one could feel the fear ripple through the crowd, thinking the injury was a serious one. He was then rushed to the hospital, where he was later said to have regained consciousness. As it was, however, he barely got a slap on the wrist in the form of a yellow card. Speaking of head kicks, Mara's own son was not the first to grace the football pitch, and it wouldn't be the last. During the Champions League, 2 players raised their boots high and 2 others got their faces bashed. The slight problem is that there were different punishments for both offenders. When Zlatan Ibrahimovic kicked Mbemba in the face with his spiked boots and the latter fell hard in the field, Zlatan only got a yellow card. Meanwhile, moments earlier, Griezmann had been sent off the field for committing the same offense of violently decorating Firmino's face. Atletico fans were mad, but I'm sure no one was madder than Chancel Mbemba himself, who very nearly had his facial structure rearranged in the altercation. In 2022, Barcelona signed Jules Koundé from Sevilla. He was a great addition to the team, but the first training session was definitely going to be a funny situation. You see, in December of the previous year, Koundé's old club and his new one had faced each other. At the time, Koundé was still in Sevilla, and what did he do? He bashed someone's head in. Well, not with a golf club or anything, but with the way Alba went down with his immense force after being hit in the face by that ball, one would have thought he was never going to get up. Koundé was sent off the field for this extreme act of violence, and I'm sure Alba was not going to forgive him so easily. I can't imagine what will happen when these 2 arch enemies have to train side by side. It will be quite entertaining, unlike this next one, which is anything but funny. Rather than fuming in silence as the referee barely punishes your attacker, just as Mbemba did, you might as well take justice into your own hands and push back. At least, that's the lesson Zaha taught everyone when Tottenham faced Crystal Palace in the Premier League. He had been pushed with immense force to the ground by 22-year-old Spurs winger Tanganga. Tanganga hadn't even been trying to make a pass, he was just looking for trouble. I can understand why Zaha must have been infuriated. When the defender stood up, he pushed back and was ready to fight. Tanganga wasn't ready to back down either, and it took equally furious team members from both sides to stop them from killing each other. This next player also took matters into his own hands and was actually able to exact revenge. After the altercation between these 2 footballers, it was hard to tell who the victim was anymore. During the Tottenham vs Everton match, where the former beat the latter 5-0, there was another match going on within the match. This one was between 2 players, Romero and Richarlison. Richarlison, an Everton player, had pushed Romero to the ground while he was chasing the ball. It was unclear whether this was an accident. After all, there had never been any love lost between both of them. The fight didn't end there, however, because Romero was determined to exact revenge this time. The Tottenham player stood his ground and had a heated confrontation with Richarlison. It ended with him tackling Richarlison in the face. The level of pettiness that Romero showed was unbelievable. especially when he posted a personal picture of Rikarlison on the floor with the 5-0 scoreboard at the bottom on his Instagram story. Well, some people just don't know how to let things go. This next player is another clear example of that. One would never know what Guendouzi held against Holebas, but he clearly wasn't ready to let it go. Sometimes the intervening player is even more invested in a fight than the original fighters. This is what happened just before half-time during the match between Arsenal and Watford. With the way Guendouzi jumped into the fight, one would think he already had it in for Holebas. The Gunners were winning when Pepe tried to make a pass and ended up heavily tripping Holebas. The Watford player did not take it lightly, and things got so intense that other players had to intervene. Suddenly, it seemed like the fight was no longer between Holebas and Pepe, but with Guendouzi as the latter shoved Jose in the eye. However, there were conflicts as to whether that truly happened or if it was some trick of the light. The professionals analyzing the game were caught at a crossfire until a playback showed Guendouzi forcing his elbow into Jose's face. But he had already gotten away with just the yellow card. He better be careful the next time he is on the field with Holebas. He may just be fed a dose of his own medicine. Just like Jose, the GOAT Messi was lucky not to suffer permanent damage. In 2017, during a match between Barcelona and Juventus, a 7-time Ballon d'Or winner nearly lost his life. How many 7 times Ballon d'Or winners do you know? Of course, I'm talking about Lionel Messi. The match had been intense and Messi was so active that he even jumped to grab the ball with his chest, only for Miralem to try and catch the ball as well. But Miralem accidentally knocked Messi to the ground and he landed on his neck at a terrifying angle. It was quite a dangerous injury, but according to a member of the Barcelona medical team, it could have been worse. Messi was on the floor bleeding heavily, but according to the medical staff, if he had just skidded further by a mere 2.7 millimeters, he would have broken his neck in a serious and possible even fatal injury. Losing Messi would have shattered his team, his country, and even the world of football. But I'm glad it didn't happen that way. And that's all for this video. Those are 7 players who almost lost their lives in the hands of their fellow players. Do you know any other players who almost killed each other? Let me know in the comments section.